start recording us, so that way you can't yell. And we'll get started. Thank you. We'll call it official. So now if you want to yell, we'll have proof of that. So, all right, well, welcome everybody. It is a little after 12:30. Happy Monday, happy June, happy pre-election day. All right, let's go to roll call, please, Lisa.
District 1.
District 1 here.
District 2.
District 2 here.
District 3. District 4. District 5.
I'm here.
Banning.
Here.
Beaumont. Calamasa.
Here.
Canyon Lake. Corona.
Here.
Eastvale.
Present.
Hemet.
Here.
Harupa Valley.
Here.
Lake Elsinore.
Here.
Menifee.
Here.
Moreno Valley.
Here.
Marietta.
Here.
Norco.
Here.
Harris.
Here.
Riverside. San Jacinto.
Here.
Temecula.
Here.
Wildemar.
Here.
Thank you. We do have a quorum.
All right, thank you so much. Before we go to our pledge, just some housekeeping you all know very well. If you're a speaker this afternoon joining us or on the phone, it's just *9 to unmute or raise your hand feature, and the rest of you know the drill, so we won't give you instructions you're very, very familiar with. So that will take us to our Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me as we salute our flag. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty. All right. It's going to take us to item number 4, which are public comments. Do we have any requests to speak?
We did receive 2 written comments for items not on the agenda from a Dr. Chandra Richards and from a Gumatra Khalsa, and I believe they're both present. And then I do see a hand raised from Jan Lee Watson as well.
Okay, great. Ms. Janley, we will turn the floor to you as I see your hand first and hear your public comments this afternoon. If you're speaking, I think you may be on mute, double mute. If not, want to hit unmute, or if you're on the phone, *9.
I'm so sorry.
There you are. We hear you now.
I'm Janet Watson. I'm the Communications Director for the Mesco Valley Communication Systems Group. Regarding agenda item 7, please do whatever is necessary to protect our native habitat in Lake Elsinore and Mesco Valley area. Thank you.
It was a little difficult to hear for the the board's sake. Did everybody hear the message? I want to make sure. If you didn't, no. Ben, I see your no. Lisa, yes.
I believe Ms. Watson has comments regarding the closed session item.
Okay.
So is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Gosh, I couldn't hear a word she said, honestly.
Okay. Yeah, I was a little worried about that. Miss Genley, do you want to do you want to just try to maybe turn your volume up and maybe speak a little closer to whether your phone or your PC or whatever, so the board can hear your comments, because we weren't allowed, we weren't really able to hear. I only caught bits and pieces of it. I know what you're commenting is in reference to, but it's really hard to hear your comments.
My volume is up as high as it'll go.
Okay, we can hear you. So whatever you're doing, stay right there and keep talking.
Earlier, I submitted an email comment that I think Lisa included in your packets. I just wanted to say this morning that regarding agenda item 7A, please do whatever is necessary to protect the native habitat of the Lake Elsinore and Telesco Valley areas. That's
Got it.
all.
Thank you so much. And who, we appreciate that. Who's our next? Lisa, will you just call through the speakers as?
Yes.
Okay.
I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name, but Guru Mantra.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Good afternoon. My name is Guru Mantra Khalsa. I am the board chair of the World Be Well organization, and our focus is on food systems, eco services, and cooperative workforce development. I understand we need an additional 65,393 acres in order to reach our preservation goal of 500,000. And that might cost $1.5 billion to acquire. So I offer a possibility. What if Western Riverside RCA were able to use sustainable agriculture land conservation grant funds to acquire some of the outstanding ARLs? Land management efforts that complement regenerative agriculture practices would help to preserve these natural carbon sinks along with wildlife habitat and biodiversity. So last week, we recommended to the LAFCO board that they consider applying for a SALC planning grant. And the Strategic Growth Council will increase funding limits if 2 eligible organizations apply jointly. And so we're encouraging you all to consider a joint planning application with LAFCO. And should you be interested, Chandra Richards with UCANR can provide all the additional information, and I think she's on the call. So World Be Well recommends that you consider being able to do this quickly because there's a short window, July 15th. So thanks for your consideration. I hope it works out because there's a lot of brain trust in this board meeting here. So if you're looking at how you can make something work, you'll be able to figure something out by July 15th. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you, sir.
The next speaker we have is Chandra Richards. I believe.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Chandra Richards. I am an agricultural land acquisition academic coordinator working at the University of California Agriculture and Natural Resources. I support the Sustainable Agricultural Land Conservation Program, also known as SALC, across Southern California, specifically Riverside, San Bernardino, and San Diego counties. The SALC program aims to fight climate change by protecting our prime farmlands and encouraging compact transit-oriented communities. The loss of prime California farmland is a threat to the economic vitality and environmental sustainability of our communities and of the state. The SALC program uses cap and trade proceeds to protect agricultural lands at the urban-rural fringe and on the outskirts of cities from any development or conversion to non-agricultural uses. The program is funded by the Strategic Growth Council and administered by the California Department of Conservation. SALC offers planning grants which aim to develop and implement plans for the protection of agricultural lands at risk of conversion. Multiple eligible applicant groups can apply, including cities, counties, LAFCOs, California Native American tribes, councils of governments, municipal planning organizations, regional transportation planning, or groundwater sustainability agencies, or special districts with land use or transportation planning authorities. The maximum grant award is $500,000 if 2 or more eligible applicants can apply jointly. And this award must include 10% match. Applicants can also work with a partner, including resource conservation districts, any special districts with a mission related to agricultural preservation, academic institutions, land trusts, and other agricultural nonprofit organizations. The deadlines for planning grants are July 1 for pre-proposals, which are optional, and then September 9 for the full application. And the project awards will be announced at the Strategic Growth Council meeting in December. If you're interested in learning more and or applying, please reach out by email or phone. That's cmrichards@ucanr.edu or 619-786-2620 or the Department of Conservation for any dedicated technical assistance support. Thank you for your attention and time.
Thank you.
We have another hand raised from Jerry Sincich.
Yes, good morning, and hopefully everyone can hear me. My message is simple and quick. I also, along with Jan Lee, submitted comments to the clerk of the board, and hopefully those comments will be entered into the record of this meeting. They're in regard to agenda item number 7, which is in closed session, but certainly encourage you to continue your position as an intervener with the LEAPS project. So thank you. And that's the end of my comments. Back to you.
Thank you so much. Is there any further requests to speak?
I'm not seeing any additional hands raised.
All right. There are no additions or revisions. So that is going to take us to our consent calendar. Are there any requests to speak on the consent calendar?
We did not receive any written comments, and I'm not seeing any hands raised.
All right, then we will bring it to the board for questions or comments and or consideration.
I just have to move to approve.
And if you second,
All right, I have a motion to approve by San Jacinto, a second by Menifee. Is there any further discussion? All right, we'll move to roll call vote for our consent calendar.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3, District 5,
Yes.
Banning,
Yes.
Calamasa,
Yes.
Canyon Lake,
Yes.
Corona,
Yes.
Eastvale,
Aye.
Hemet,
Yes.
Garupa Valley,
Yes.
Lake Elsinore,
Yes.
Menifee,
yes.
Moreno Valley,
Yes.
Marietta,
Yes.
Norco,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
San Jacinto,
Yes.
Temecula,
Aye.
Wildemar.
Aye.
Thank you. The consent calendar passes.
All right, that takes us to item number 7, which is closed session. I know we do have some requests to speak. I'm going to turn it over to legal counsel to make our announcement.
Yes, we have one item on the closed session agenda. The case name is on the face of the agenda. It's a FERC matter, project P15261-000.
Lisa, do we want to take our request?
We did receive 3 written comments regarding this item. Jan Lee Watson, Jerry Sincich, and Tracy Davis, and 2 of those already spoke during public comment. I'm not seeing Tracy Davis on the call, and I'm not seeing any additional hands raised.
Let me make sure that the board has received the written comments. These were emailed out to the board. Has everybody received their comments? Yes, I see yes. And then if you've seen some heads nod yes, thumbs up, yes, and yes, and yes. Okay, if you haven't received those comments, then we can make sure that they're in your email so you can pull them up. Go ahead and check those out, but we'll move to closed session, noting the 3 public comments.
Please stand by.
Board Member Cervantes, did you get the notification for closed session?
We are good to go.
Madam Chair, should I commence the announcement?
I was muted by somebody,
Oh.
not sure who, but that's okay. Thank you. Yes, I said I'll turn it over to legal counsel for our closed session report. I appreciate that.
Great. Yes, the board in closed session voted to authorize legal counsel to file an intervention related to the FERC matter that is listed on the agenda. That's it.
All right, thank you so much. That is our closed session report. That'll take us to item number 8, which is our surplus declaration of real property. Are there any requests to speak on item number 8?
Hi, we did not receive any written comments on this item, and I am not seeing any hands raised.
All right, then I believe Monica is going to be giving us our staff report today.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Johnson and board members. My name is Monica Tlaxcala, Senior Management Analyst for the Right-of-Way Department. And today for your consideration is an item pertaining to real property owned by the RCA and a request from staff to declare it surplus property. Next slide, please. The subject property is identified as Assessor's Parcel Number 571-590-011 and is 5.16 acres in size and is located near Jojoba Hill Circle and Soaring Hawk Road in the unincorporated community of Sage. Prior to RCTC taking over as managing agency of RCA, on May 6, 2019, the board agreed to acquire the subject property through the county tax sale process, as the owners of the property had defaulted on their property taxes. At the time, RCA saw this parcel as an opportunity due to it being adjacent to existing RCA reserve land and its potential contribution to the MSHCP. The property was then formally acquired by RCA from the County of Riverside on June 25th, 2021. In the short period we've owned the property, staff has concluded it is not an ideal property for us to hold and thus recommends the property to be declared surplus due to the maintenance costs and the recent habitat assessment completed for this particular property. In compliance with the board's adopted right-of-way policies and procedures manual, staff completed a review of the property, including the habitat assessment. According to the habitat assessment, the property is within an existing rural development with an established homeowners association with associated dues. Although the property is described for conservation, the lands within the homeowners association are sized to support single-family rural homes that would not trigger reserve assembly and have weed abatement requirements of approximately 100 feet at the property boundary. Due to this property's homeowners association dues and its weed abatement needs, the property is undesirable to maintain in the RCA inventory. Next slide, please. Depicted on the screen is a summary of the steps that are involved to dispose of the surplus land according to state law and the board's adopted policies. Step 1, pursuant to the Surplus Land Act, Government Code 54220, and the approved manual, a notice of availability will be delivered to the public agencies and affordable housing developers. All interested parties shall have 60 days after issuance of the RCA's notice of availability to notify the RCA in writing of their interests. Step 2, if RCA receives a response expressing interest within the 60 days, RCA must negotiate in good faith for at least 90 days. Step 3, if RCA does not receive a response in writing from any interested party within the 60 days, or RCA does not reach an agreement with the entity who responds to the notice of availability, then RCA must submit a package of information and documents to the state's Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, showing RCA has complied with the Surplus Land Act guidelines. Step 4, within 30 days, HCD must submit in writing the findings via a letter or issue a notice of violation of any steps within the Surplus Land Act guidelines. If any violations are identified, the agency will have the opportunity to correct within the 30 days. If HCD does not provide a response within the allotted time frame, it will be deemed an automatic approval. Step 5, upon HCD approval, the parcel may be then offered to sell to the public. Step 6, following the completion of the Surplus Land Act process, staff will procure an appraisal report to determine the fair market value of the surplus property. Step 7, The surplus property will then be advertised for sale, utilizing various marketing methods, including the RCA's website, online publications, and placement of signage on the property. Step 8, an invitation for bids will be added to the RCA's website with a submittal date included. Step 9, offers received will be reviewed on the following criteria: price and terms and conditions of sale. All applicants will be required to complete the RCA's conflict of interest form. Step 10, upon selection of the willing applicant, staff will return to the RCA's board for approval before entering into a purchase and sale agreement if necessary. The current manual allows the RCA's executive director to approve a sale if the offer is within 90% of the appraised value and under $100,000. Next slide, please. Staff is recommending approval of Resolution 2022-006, a request to declare the 5.16 acres as a surplus property. Next slide, please. That concludes my presentation, and I will be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Can we put the last slide back up, please, for our action? Thank you so much. I see that we have a hand raised, so we'll go to comments, questions, or considerations. Jonathan?
Can you repeat the name of that HOA again, please?
The HOA, I didn't say it during my presentation. However, it is Palomar View Estates.
Right. So we actually looked at this a few years back, and one of the things that we might want to take into consideration when looking at this particular property is that space has manufactured slope. And that was one of the issues with actually taking over the property, is that we don't accept manufactured slope, just FYI.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any other requests, questions, comments, or? If not, then I'll entertain a consideration.
I'll move staff's recommendation, 3rd district.
Second, Temecula.
I have a motion to move staff recommendation and adopt the resolution number 2022-006, second by Temecula. If there's no further questions, we will go to roll call vote.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
Banning,
Yes.
Calamasa,
Yes.
Canyon Lake,
Aye.
Corona,
Aye.
Eastvale,
Aye.
Hemet,
Yes.
Parupa Valley,
Yes.
Lake Elsinore,
Yes.
Menifee,
Aye.
Moreno Valley,
Yes.
Marietta,
Yes.
Norco,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
San Jacinto,
Yes.
Temecula,
Aye.
Wildemar.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 8 passes.
Thank you. Monica, I appreciate your presentation, especially your step-by-step, very helpful. We're going to move to item number 9. That is the adoption of our fiscal year 2022-2023 budget and approval of the biological monitoring program work plan. Are there any requests to speak on this agenda item?
We did not receive any written comments on this item, and I'm not seeing any hands raised.
All right, then I get to turn it over to Ms. Jennifer Fuller for our presentation.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and board members. Jennifer Fuller, Financial Administration Manager. RCA's today, the presentation outlines RCA's budget for fiscal year 23. RCA's budget preparation began in January with finance staff working with program staff to compile budget data and revenue estimates. Today, we seek your input and approval of the fiscal 23 budget. Next slide, please. Staff prepared an executive summary with all budget-related information in one document. The document includes budget policies, budget goals and objectives, a budget overview with a discussion on the sources and uses of funding, program initiatives, fund balance, and a budget summary, including budget schedules. The executive summary also includes 3 appendices. The first is simply a glossary of terms and acronyms. The other 2 are the fiscal year 23 work plans that describe the monitoring activities planned and the schedule for field work and include a cost estimate for personnel and operations costs. The MSHCP requires a biological monitoring program to collect data on the MSHCP's 146 covered species and their associated habitats, and to assess the MSHCP's effectiveness at meeting conservation objectives. The monitoring program administrator submits an annual work plan and cost estimate for the monitoring program to be approved by the RCA Board of Directors. The other work plan is related to the Clinton Keith Road Overcrossing Mitigation Monitoring Reimbursable Program, in which the Riverside County Transportation Department reimburses RCA using banked fee credits. The fiscal year 23 budget and related work plans include the routine annual monitoring tasks, as well as tasks to perform year 4 monitoring of the 5-year Clinton Keith Road Overcrossing Mitigation Monitoring Reimbursable Program. Next slide, please. The executive summary codifies budget policies related to the endowment, habitat acquisition, program administration, and the legacy home rebate program. I will briefly address each one. In accordance with past practice, 10% of participating special entities revenues will be allocated to the endowment for future preservation. The 2020 Nexus study recommended 15% of LDMF revenues be allocated to the endowment for future preservation. The MSHCP allows property owners who do not intend to file a development application to submit their properties for evaluation and possible acquisition under the Habitat Evaluation and Acquisition Negotiation Strategy, or HANS process. The plan requires separate accounting and a priority list be established for properties in this category. Yearly, the Board of Directors must set the non-development HANS funding level. Consistent with the fiscal 22 budget, staff recommends allocating 5% of LDMF collections for the acquisition of non-development HANS properties in fiscal year 23. The economic stability policy requires a minimum cash level of $9 million be maintained to continue operations for at least 18 months. LDMF revenues will be allocated to program needs related to habitat acquisition, reserve monitoring and management, program administration, and endowment funding in accordance with the 2020 Nexus study. Costs will be charged to the appropriate program, and LDMF revenues will be used to the extent that other funding sources are not sufficient to fund these programs. The fund balance policy requires RCA to maintain at least 1 year of general fund expenditures in reserve, and RCTC incurs costs on behalf of RCA, for which RCA reimburses RCTC. RCA will deposit an amount equal to an estimated 2 months of invoices with RCTC to allow for payment before reimbursement occurs. The Legacy Home Rebate Program funding begins this coming fiscal year with a set aside of over $70,000 for rebates. Next slide, please. Staff anticipates beginning the fiscal year with $78 million in fund balance. Nearly 2/3 of this amount, or $51.9 million, is restricted in how it can be spent or is for non-spendable endowments. Another nearly 11%, or $8.2 million, must be maintained according to the fund balance policy. Currently, there is more demand for RCA to purchase properties than supply of funds. History has shown, and there will be a graph in a few slides to reflect this, that our main revenue source fluctuates with the economy. Maintaining healthy reserves helps RCA continue its mission even in down years. Fiscal year 23 estimated sources are budgeted at $34.6 million and estimated uses are budgeted at $32.1 million. Sources are estimated to exceed uses by nearly $2.5 million related to endowment funding. Next slide, please. Major funding sources include local development mitigation fees, state and federal grants, land donations, tipping fees from Riverside County, and transportation uniform mitigation fees. LDMF revenues represent 49% of sources and will be discussed more on the next slide. State and federal grants represent less than 1% of sources and include the possible purchase of 2 properties using the Harupa Mountains grant and a local assistance grant for evaluating Kino checkerspot butterfly habitat. Staff have submitted a grant application for the 2022 non-traditional Section 6 grant. When this grant is secured, staff will return to the board with a budget adjustment to spend the funds. Land donations are about 25% of revenues. Staff anticipates the acquisition of 3 land donations with an estimated value of $8.6 million and nearly 170 acres during fiscal year 23. Out-of-county tonnage is expected to remain close to current year levels next year at 3.7 million, for approximately 2.4 million tons and represents about 11% of sources. Based on current year collections and WRCOG projections for fiscal year 23 TUMP revenues, staff projects $750,000 in TUMP revenues for fiscal 23. TUMP revenues represent about 2% of sources. Other revenue sources are 3% of total sources and include reimbursement for services, civic and infrastructure contributions, interest, and other revenue. Operating transfers in relate to funding for reserve management and monitoring and program administration that will be covered by LDMF revenues. An identical amount is included in habitat acquisition budget as operating transfers out. Transfers in are about 10% of sources. Next slide, please. This chart shows LDMF collections since fiscal year 2005. They peaked last year. Staff anticipates that fiscal year 23 revenues will grow slightly to 16.8 million. The increase is due to the CPI increase for the new fiscal year. The LDMF fluctuates with the economy. This is likely a conservative projection, and staff will monitor the LDMF revenues throughout the fiscal year and will bring forward a budget adjustment if the collections are markedly different from projections. Next slide, please. This chart shows all RCA sources comparing the fiscal year 23 projected budget to the fiscal 22 amended budget and current fiscal year 22 projections. Revenues are projected to be very stable and in line with fiscal 22 amended budget and current fiscal year 22 projections, except for state and federal grants. As mentioned previously, staff have applied for funding through the 2022 non-traditional Section 6 grant, which will not be awarded till next fiscal year. Local development mitigation fees are projected to increase 5% from fiscal year 22 amended budget revenues and current year projections. Land donations are expected to decrease from fiscal 22 amended budget by 3% and increase over fiscal year 22 projected amounts by 66%. TUMP revenues are expected to remain flat. Other revenue is projected to be very similar to fiscal 22 amended budget. Current projections for fiscal year 22 are higher due to a few large projects from Riverside County Flood Control. Next slide, please. This table shows RCA spending for its 4 programs. This is consistent with RCA's core mission and responsibilities under the MSHCP and the 2020 Nexus study. Habitat acquisition decreased 13% from the fiscal year 22 amended budget. This is mostly related to the decrease in state and federal grants. Reserve monitoring and management increased slightly by 10%. This increase mainly relates to rising contract costs from vendors and budget for a new contract related to enforcement on RCA-owned lands. Program administration increased by 18%. This increase is related to increasing contract labor costs and administrative costs related to management services agreement with RCTC. Beginning in July, RCA will process the majority of its accounts payable through RCTC's financial system, increasing contract management and transparency. Next slide, please. This slide shows the funding significance of habitat acquisition compared to the other programs. Habitat acquisition represents 74% of total uses, with reserve management being about 13% and program administration being only 12%. Endowments with only a little over $48,000 in projected uses represents less than 1% of the budget. Next slide, please. General administration expenditures reflect an 8% increase from the fiscal year 22 amended budget. Many of the administrative costs previously budgeted are now incurred by RCTC and reimbursed by RCA. These costs are now accounted for in contract costs. Contract expenditures reflect a 16% increase over the fiscal 22 amended budget. Major contracts include the following: management services agreement with RCTC to be discussed on the following slide. A management services agreement with Riverside County Parks, budgeted at nearly $1.6 million, a 9% increase from fiscal year 22 related to staff pay increases and the addition of a new position. Parks will provide day-to-day land management activities, plus additional reimbursable activities related to deposit agreements and fee credits, as well as fire abatement and endowment-related work. Biological monitoring services with Santa Ana Watershed Association, estimated at just over $1.6 million, a 10% increase over fiscal year 22, and it's related to staff pay increases approved by SAWA. Fiscal year 22 saw the final payment on debt service related to a loan agreement with the county to acquire 226 acres of reserve land. Assessment and fee expenditures of $80,000 represent special assessments, including homeowner association fees for RCA-owned land subject to such fees. Habitat acquisition and maintenance budgeted expenditures of $17.1 million reflects a 17% decrease from fiscal year 22 amended budget. The fiscal year 23 proposed budget anticipates less state and federal land acquisitions. The fiscal year 23 proposed capital outlay budget anticipates costs related to acquisition improvements of habitat acquired, including $8.4 million for approximately 1,017 acres of possible ARL, $8.6 million related to donated land, and $45,000 in other potential acquisitions related to state grant funds. Habitat acquisition costs include the purchase price of property acquired, appraisals, title reports, real estate services, legal services, environmental reviews, surveying, and other costs associated with the acquiring of habitat. The 2020 Nexus study permits the use of the LDMF revenues for all functions of the RCA. Operating transfers out relate to the transfer of LDMF revenues from the Capital Projects Fund to the General Fund to meet budget needs for reserve management and monitoring and program administration. Next slide, please. This chart shows uses by function with habitat acquisition as the largest expenditure group. The increase in contract expenditures in fiscal year 23 budget is related to increasing contract services and costs from our vendors. On the next slide, we'll discuss the management services agreement with RCTC. Next slide, please. Beginning in July, staff will start to process most invoices through RCTC's financial system, increasing contract oversight and transparency. All other financial transactions will continue to be completed through the county's financial system. This change is most significant driver of the increase in management services reimbursements to RCTC, accounting for 81% of the increase. This is an administrative shift in how we do business and in which financial system bills are paid. It is not a true increase in costs from the management services contract, as whether the bills are paid through the county financial system or RCTC's financial system, the bills would still need to be paid. Overall, the management services include RCTC staff salaries and benefits of $3.7 million, general administration costs of $3.7 million related to an estimated administrative cost allocation, board stipends, facilities maintenance and capital outlay, legal, audit, public outreach, legislative advocacy services, and miscellaneous costs. Real property services of $769,500 related to habitat acquisition, $2.2 million for management and monitoring contracts, and $70,000 for the Legacy Home Rebate Program. Next slide, please. With this overview of the fiscal year 23 budget, staff recommends that the Board of Directors adopt the fiscal year 23 budget and related resolution 2022-005. The resolution includes the adoption of the budget policies listed in the executive summary. The inclusion of a summary of policies impacting budget promotes fiduciary responsibility and organizational excellence. Approve the biological monitoring program work plan and cost estimate included as Appendix B in the fiscal year 23 budget, and approve the Clinton Keith Road Overcrossing Mitigation Monitoring Reimbursable Program work plan and cost estimate included as Appendix C to the budget. Next slide, please. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. Lots of information. I don't know that I see hands because we have our presentation up. Are there any?
I do see a hand raised from Director Males.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
I
you.
just have a question. I know what the tump fee is, but what's a tipping fee?
So tipping fees are charged at the waste disposal sites within Riverside County, and RCA gets $1.50 for every ton of out of county tonnage dumped at the landfills.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Chair, if it's okay, I'll go ahead and like to move the item.
Valley second.
I have a motion to move staff recommendation and adopt our 2022-2023 budget, including approving the work plans and the cost estimates, but I don't know who our second is.
Arupa Valley second.
Thank you. All right. If there are no further discussion, we'll go to roll call vote.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
Banning,
Yes.
Calamasa,
Yes.
Canyon Lake,
Aye.
Corona,
Yes.
Eastvale,
Aye.
Hemet,
Yes.
Arupa Valley,
Yes.
Lake Elsinore,
Yes.
Menifee,
Aye.
Moreno Valley,
Yes.
Marietta,
Yes.
Norco,
Yes.
Paris,
Yes.
San Jacinto,
Yes.
Temecula,
Yes.
Wildemar.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 9 passes.
All right, thank you. And to Jennifer and to staff, thank you for a very detailed presentation and overview. While we get to see it in just a few minutes, we know that a lot of work goes into it, and we appreciate the clarity and the transparency. So kudos, bravo, nicely done. All right, that will take us to item number 10 and getting to know the MSHCP. And today we have Tricia Campbell presenting getting to know the MSHCP.
Good afternoon, Chair Johnson, board members, and the public. This month we are presenting what are MSHCP linkages. Linkages are an integral part of the success of the MSHCP. Next slide, please. Essentially, linkages are species roads to the large expansive areas we call cores. Although linkages do not represent the bulk of the acreage in the MSHCP reserve system, without them, the reserve doesn't function. So genetic flow is an important mechanism for transferring genetic diversity among populations. Linkages provide that necessary genetic flow between areas that would otherwise be isolated from one another and making the populations vulnerable to inbreeding. For many of us, it makes sense mammals like mountain lion or bobcat need to have ways to safely move between the large protected lands. But what about birds? Don't they fly? Well, for birds that migrate to and from our lands, they can fly between the conserved lands. But for birds that are non-migratory, such as California gnatcatcher or cactus wren, they are not strong flyers and do not just up and fly away. They fly low and with strong flights within their habitat. So without linkages, these types of birds would not have genetic flow occurring between isolated cores and reserve lands, no matter how large the cores are. At the time of the plan was being established, it was already known that some linkages would be what we call constrained, meaning they were already a constricted connection linking the two large core areas. For constrained linkages, it may only take successful movement of a few individuals of the planting species in the span of a year to provide that necessary genetic flow between the core areas. Next slide, please. Linkages in a planned area often cross roads and highways. Wildlife crossings can include undercrossings and overcrossings. These designated crossing areas result in fewer traffic collisions and allow the animals to move safely. These crossings can also include directive fencing, which further keeps wildlife off the highways and actually funnels them to the crossings. An example of the Clinton Keith wildlife overcrossing can be seen here. And if you look carefully behind the overcrossing, you can see an additional bridge that creates an undercrossing at Warm Springs Creek. Human disturbance at crossings is a major concern. For example, people without housing living in the undercrossing, excess trail use or creation. And the RCA has partnered with organizations to help clean up undercrossing locations and limit human access to these areas, making them safer for wildlife to move through. Next slide, please. Linkages in the plan area are monitored by the RCA. One of the ways we do this is through remote camera traps that are used to detect species that use linkages and wildlife crossings. These cameras have captured a wide variety of animals, including butterflies, birds, kangaroo rats, coyote, bobcat, and mountain lion. So here in this slide, the top left is the Clinton Keith overcrossing in Marietta, which we call proposed Core 2. Top right is what is known as B Canyon near Corona, and that's proposed constrained linkage 1. Very important for mountain lion movement between the Santa Ana Mountains into Chino State Park and Prado Basin and vice versa. This is crossing underneath State Route 91. Bottom right is Temecula Creek in Temecula, which is proposed constrained linkage 14 that connects to proposed linkage 10 and existing Core G, an extremely important undercrossing beneath I-15, linking the Palomar and Santa Ana Mountains for mountain lion. Bottom left is in the Badlands, which is proposed Core 3. Next slide, please. Thank you for allowing me to talk with you about the transportation of species. I'm glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Tricia. Any questions on linkage? No comments? All right, well, we appreciate that, Tricia. That will take us to item number 11, which is anything you all have for the good of our board. Are there any updates or comments?
I have a comment.
Yes.
I just wanted to let, I had a really great time with Aaron touring the Anheuser-Busch property. It was absolutely amazing. I wish everybody would have the opportunity to do that. Aaron, what was his name? I'm sorry, I forgot his name. Our tour guide.
Jonathan Reinig with County Parks.
I had such a great time, and it just made me feel like, you know, we sit in this room and now we sit in front of a screen, and sometimes we don't know that our votes actually matter and are creating something. And what's out there, I've been on 2 tours now in the last 6 weeks or so, and there's probably very little I've done as an elected official that I'm more proud of than putting some of these pieces of land together. As that some of you know, the Anheuser-Busch was a really, Jonathan probably remembers, that was a really hard piece of property to get and put together, and just totally well worth it. All I could think of is my granddaughter is going to get to see this 20 years from now, 50 years from now. So Aaron, thank you for the tour, and Ann, thank you for setting that up for me.
Thank you, Kevin. Lisa.
Thank you. I just have a question. I know we can't talk about it because it's not on the agenda, but the 2 commenters today in the public comment about the grant opportunity, we won't be able to talk about it, and the deadline, I don't know if that's something we even need to look into. But I just wanted to make mention that they came to us and there's an opportunity. I don't know if it's something that we want, but the deadline's July 1st before the next meeting. So just wanted to, I don't know if Ann, if you can even make a comment on it. So, or Aaron. So just wanted to let those people know that I did hear their comments, and if it's opportunity for the RCA, we should take advantage of it. So thank you.
Lisa, thank you for that. I think what we plan to do is Ann has potentially a comment in her report that she can update some efforts that we will keep us all on the right track. Okay, great. Are there any other comments? No? Okay. All right. Well, then this will be the time where we turn it over to Ann for her executive director report and see what she has in store for us, including some comments on that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And we will take a look at the information that was provided to us earlier today related to those grants. There are some consistencies in terms of ag preservation as well as habitat conservation. So we'll look to see if the grant is something that we could possibly explore. So staff will get started evaluating that. Ag lands and habitat conservation aren't necessarily always consistent with each other, but there are certainly opportunities for overlap. So we will take a look at that.
The other item I would like to update you on is that effective July 1st, in accordance with the MSHCP implementation manual, the MSHCP fee will adjust as approved by the board by a change in the consumer price index. So on July 1st, there will be an adjustment in the MSHCP fees that are paid. This year, the fee will increase by 8.592% based on the CPI increase for the Riverside, San Bernardino, and Ontario metropolitan area. Notice of this CPI adjustment was sent out to all of the member agencies at the beginning of May. We've also updated the fee forms. We have provided them electronically to the member agencies, the finance departments, community development, and planning departments. We've also posted notification of the fee adjustments to the website for public awareness. So again, the updated fee based on CPI adjustment will go into effect on July 1st. That completes my report. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Ann. That's going to take us to item number 12, which is an adjournment. We have our next scheduled meeting on Monday, July 11th. Before I actually adjourn, I just want to say, wish my colleagues best of luck in many upcoming elections. Some of you just need one vote. Some of you need a few more. So I will just say thanking of you, sending all the positive vibes your way. And with that, I will see you in July. Have a great month of June. Appreciate you all.
Good luck, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.